So imagine this with me. There's a land not so far away. It's not the perfect world, but it's a good one until the crisis happened. A disaster appears and throws everything in disorder. It brings to light flaws in the land security, exposes the inadequacy of the ruling body. To top it off, the pride of the land was stolen, taken away, and can only be retrieved by a strong, wise, and able person. A candidate, a hero or heroine is chosen, but they are unable yet. So they train. They go into seclusion in a fortress, packed with scrolls of enlightenment, scrolls of skills, etc., and a gathering of tools. A plethora of teachers, all for their improvement, all inside the fortress.
When we think about life, we think about pain, joy, peace, turbulence, stagnancy, growth, and a bunch of other things. Things that guide our experiences and how we view the batshit crazy society we live in. And with that, I bid you welcome to the Volatile Times with Daniel podcast, a show where I, Daniel, your host, seeks to bring just a little bit of balance to the table. So sit back, relax, and listen, because you are in for the treat.
Hey there, fluid one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time of the day you are listening to this, and welcome to another episode of the Volatile Times with Daniel podcast. And oh, dear fluid one, I am so happy that you are back. This whole 2 week, schedule thing, I have not taken it all. It's needed, but I am not taking it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. I changed the podcast schedule to 2 weeks, so episodes only come out every 2 weeks now. And it's because I had to do that, to accommodate for a lot of things, a lot of things I'm currently doing right now. Some of them will be ending at the end of the month of November, which will be giving me space to do a lot much more, and just space to rest. But I was like, for me to do this podcast thing, which I'm so in love with, and to do it right, or at least to maintain a certain level of quality that I've been maintaining for a while, I have to give myself space. And really, I hope that it helps me not give you mediocre content, because you are here to listen because you want value. You are not here because my voice is sexy and all, but I'm not denying that part. Anyway, okay. But thank you to everyone who listened to the last episode. And if you did not listen to the last episode was a new series I'm doing on the podcast. It's about stories, where I read to you self-written stories by people on the internet, myself, friends, or just or stories just in general. Sometimes they can be poems. If I find maybe like a spoken word thing that I read on the internet and was really, really good, I can read it out. I might have to get permission from the author first, but the last one was really, really good. I wrote it myself. If you haven't listened to it, go and listen to it immediately after this episode. It's called Tabitha's Descent. It goes, Briggs tells its story 1, Tabitha's Descent. And let me know what you think. Let me know, can I actually write? Okay. Let me go into today's something, self-development. Yeah, like you already guessed this from the title. My titles are never clickbait. I pride myself in that. My titles are never clickbait, and the title, goes around something like self-development and why you're bad at it, right? But I think the question to ask first is, there's always a question to ask. Yes, there's always a question to ask, and the question to ask first is, so what is self-development? And shocker, there isn't a standardized definition for self-development. You do not believe me? Go on the internet yourself and search, and every single article you find, every single post, every single video, every single person that talks about self-development defines it in a variably different way. Like, there are elements that are common to everyone's definition, right? But there is not a really standardized definition for self-development, and there's a reason for that, which I'll get into in a minute. Self-development is something everybody begins at some point in their life, and I'm not talking about the constant act of improving yourself this time. The constant act of improving yourself is something we are all taught to do, but then the act of self-development, like the process, the act itself, that we can term self-development, usually begins for most people at meetings, and forward kind of at meetings. And I'm talking, when I say meetings, I believe meetings should fall around 15. At the age of 15 years old, people start to get introduced into the world of self-development and different things like that, and take it up from there. Now, I went over the internet, just to find some definitions, because we need definitions. I am one of those people who like definitions. Doesn't mean I like boxing things up, but definitions give a roadmap for thought. You understand? Give a roadmap for thought. So this is from Wikipedia. It says personal development is defined, and there's a caveat that says by whom, and I'm going to explain why it says that. It says personal development is defined as activities that improve awareness and identity, develops talents and potential, build human capital, facilitate employability, and enhance the quality of life and the realization of dreams and aspirations. Whew. That is a mouthful. Let's look at the things it highlights. It says the activities that improve awareness and identity, develop talent and potential, build human capital, which is such an interesting term. Build human capital. What exactly can we call human capital? And it says human capital is the stock of habits, knowledge, social and personal attributes, including creativity, embodied in the ability to perform labor so as to produce economic value. Again, human capital is the stock of habits, knowledge, social and personality attributes, including creativity, embodied in the ability to perform labor so as to produce economic value. That is also a mouthful. And remember, Wikipedia says personal development is defined and puts a caveat by whom. The reason is because, like I said, there is no majorly defined. Did I say majorly defined? What's happening to my English? There is no concrete standard definition for self-development. Self-development most of the time is left up to personal definition, which can be a good thing and also a bad thing. But there's one major thing. Okay, let me find another definition for self-development that I found online, and this is from Skills You Need. skillsyouneed.com. It says personal development is a way for people to assess their skills and qualities, consider their aims in life, and set goals in order to realize and maximize their potential. Again, it says is a way for people to assess their skills and qualities, consider their aims in life, and set goals in order to realize and maximize their potential. So, as with the other definition, we can see kind of a focus on self, right? Which is why it's called self-development, and a focus on what the person can do in order to get something. What the person can do in order to get something. I found something interesting on this site. It's called mindofwinner.com. I personally don't really visit most sites like this, but look at it. It says, how hard is it to go through life if you have big obstacles in your way? It's hard. It gives us the disclaimer, the answer to that is going to right off the top. It says it's hard, really, really hard. But it goes further. It says, if you imagine that the obstacles in your way are big walls, then personal development is a way to break these walls and clear the space in front of you so that you can go through life easier. If you have a clear space in front of you, you can just flow through life and you don't have to struggle anymore and feel stuck behind big walls that seem too big to pass through. Personal development is not just a way of solving problems in your life, it is a way of growing. It is your way to a better life, to become an improved version of yourself. If you think that you don't have work to do on yourself, then you definitely do need to do some work on yourself. And this particular one encompasses a couple of things that many people see is wrong with the self-development movement. But I've given all these definitions and I haven't actually explained anything, right? I'm sorry for that. To me, self-development is, in and of itself, the beneficial act of great selfishness. And what do I mean by that? Remember all the definitions I read has a focus on self, what you can do, what you can become, and what you can give. Again, what you can do, what you can become, and what you can give, including who you are, who you can be. It's a focus on self. It's a retreating into yourself to better yourself, to create more in yourself that you can give out. You understand? So I can't remember where I saw this, but just reading up on self-development and trying to get more perspective for this episode, somebody that said growth and selfishness adds value to humanity. And it made me start questioning my thoughts on selfishness, because how can selfishness in and of itself, how we are taught in society, is supposed to be a bad thing, right? But that's not the topic of today. Daniel, don't derail. Do not waste these people's time. I don't want to waste your time. But self-development, like I said, is the great art of selfishness. It's the great beneficial act of selfishness. I think I've lost how I placed those words because I didn't write it down. Lesson, kids, write shit down. Write stuff down. Okay, now taking that into perspective, it basically means self-development is what's up with you and what's not up with you. Jordan Peterson on the Joe Rogan podcast, talking about self-development, says it is the path to self-improvement, which is to transcend your former self. And he defines that former self as flawed and insufficient. He defined it as flawed and insufficient. And he gives this analogy and goes, I'm a flawed person. I've got all my problems. Could I be as good as person X? And he's like, that's not a great question. The right question is, could you be slightly better tomorrow than your currently flawed self? Which I think is actually quite profound, because we tend to, talk about comparison, read and all this kind of stuff, and we never seek to, in and of itself, retreat into ourselves and define personal development. After gathering all this definition, there's a reason why, remember I said there's a reason why there's no a standard definition is left to self. It's because the path to enlightenment, everybody's path to success, everybody's path to fulfillment isn't necessarily the same, even though it all embodies mostly the same values. So it's like personal development isn't just this rhetorical thing, this vague thing, or it is a vague thing until you put some restrictive definitions to it. It is a vague thing, but it's not this very, very esoteric thing, that you really don't know what you're going to be doing, what it's all about. No, personal development is about you knowing who you are right now, not who you could be. That's not the first thing to know. Knowing who you are right now, you understand? Understanding who that person is right now, getting to a form of acceptance about that person right now, and then saying, tomorrow or today, can I be better than who this person was yesterday? like you set a bar, like you set a reasonable bar. Jordan Peterson, finishes that line of thought that I was reading the other time by saying the answer to figuring if you can be better than your flawed self tomorrow is you have enough humility to set the bar properly low. Then you could be better tomorrow than you are today. And what does it mean by setting the bar properly low? In other words, it's like we tend to do this judgment thing on ourselves, like self-judgment a lot. When we want to become better, we tend to always think about what is it that we could be doing better. You understand? Like, should we get new skills? Should we get a new job? Should we get new friends? Should we get new neighborhood? Should we get new this? And we constantly focus on what we can do externally and what something external can do to us or for us, and we barely ever focus on what we can do for ourselves in that moment and what we are capable of doing. Like, we don't focus on what the capability is yet. We tend to focus on what we should be capable of for, or what we perceive or think we should be capable enough to do, but we don't focus on what we are capable of doing now. So it's kind of like, take a mathematics class. You've only been taught up to the level of junior secondary school 3, right? And then you want to be so better at solving mathematics. You do not carry questions that are in line with what you've been taught in year 3. You do not carry questions that are just a little bit tough but still around something you can figure out. You go to carry questions of senior secondary school 2. That is not going to help you, and that's how most people go about this whole self-development, personal development thing. We tend to visualize ourselves rising to the wrong standards. We don't tend to localize our standards. We don't tend to be like, oh, bring this thing down to what you're capable of. Like, look at what you're capable of and what's the next semi-level to that level of capability. You understand? Like, semi-level. You can dance, right? You can dance Kelewa and everything, but okay, there's this other, and then there are some people that they can wine ways for the glory of the kingdom. Amen. So it's like you're learning how to dance and you want to learn that dance, you understand? And that dance is really professional and full-blown. Yet you do not know some movements that will help you master the dance. And most people will just automatically go, I should learn that dance straight up. And then when we can't do it, we say it's too difficult. We say it's this and that, which it is. It is difficult. That's the point. It is difficult. But how do you reduce the difficulty level? It is by having enough humility to properly lower the standards by which you should be developing. We tend to want to develop so rapidly, like so fast, like that fast. And, we tend to burn ourselves out before even having anything to burn. So it's like you're destroying the vessel when you should be strengthening the vessel. Like I personally think every beginning step of self-development should be to strengthen the vessel that is you. And that's why, like I said, you're bad at it, or most people are bad at personal development. We do not strengthen the vessel that needs to be developed. We do not, because that's even part of personal development. Develop yourself, but strengthen the vessel that needs to be developed. You understand? Like, you want to be better at social gatherings, social communication and everything, but you are not even comfortable with yourself. Like, do you even know yourself enough to be comfortable with who that person is? Because if you're not comfortable with who that person is, you can't be comfortable with other person. No, that is not right. You can't be comfortable with other people knowing that person. If you're not comfortable with who that person is, you can't be comfortable with other people knowing that person. That's fact. And it's just like there are a lot of sides to self-development, which is why I'm talking about this over the next 5 episodes. I'm not an expert at this thing. This is just, my personal thoughts. But I think self-development is the beneficial act of selfishness, or the selfish beneficial act. If I've lost that definition, please forgive me. I should have written it down, and it's always to a point, it's always to doing something, right? And this is another reason why people are bad at self-development. They do not assign a purpose to self-development. They do not assign a purpose to, that the personal development of self. And what do I mean by that? Most people just be like, I'm all about the new me, getting better and different things. To what point? For what? What is the goal for this? Like, what is the desire that needs to be fulfilled for this journey that you're embarking? Every journey has a purpose, you understand? A purposeless journey is nonsense. I don't want to use rash words. Nonsense, you understand? So, like, most people just go on this self-development cruise. You buy a lot of self-help books. You watch a lot of self-help video. You do a lot of self-help things. And then you trick yourself into thinking you are becoming better when actually you are still in the same place. Remember the hero or heroine at the beginning of the story of the episode. It's you have all of these scrolls packed with knowledge, all of these tools that can help you, a plethora of teachers teaching you, all for their improvement in the fortress, right? But it's in the fortress. The hero needs to go out and bring back what was stolen, right? But he can't just jump in the face of a crisis. He needs to prepare himself. But he keeps training inside the fortress and never goes out to hunt, never goes out to fight other people, never goes out to challenge his skills and put them to practical use. Like, no actual practicality is being ensured into his act of development or her act of development. And that is a problem. That's another reason why, or a major reason why, many people are bad at this whole self-development thing, is that we tend to gather so much but not do. Again, we tend to gather so much but not do. We don't tend to approach things with a practical level, because no matter how much skills you're gathering, you still need to be able to apply them to your life. That is the whole point. You are getting better because you see yourself as maybe lacking something or wanting something. I think I've rambled on enough. And I'll expand on the whole idea. Like, there are ideologies that actually promote self-development and why we actually are so inclined towards this thing called self-development. There are two major ideologies that push it, and I'm going to be talking about that in the next episode. And I think if there's enough time in the next episode or the third episode, I'll talk about why the constant idea that we are inadequate or not enough is also one thing that introduces us to self-development. But I hope this was helpful to you. Remember, self-development is a selfish act, but it's a selfish act for beneficial onto society or onto a particular purpose or something, you understand? It's not being selfish for the sake of selfishness. Like that is just isn't, So anyway, I think that is all I have for you guys today. I hope, again, you guys learned something and this episode triggered a thought in you. Please don't forget to follow on social at Volatile with Daniel on Instagram and at Daniel Briggs on Twitter. Briggs is with a Z, not a D, not an S, not an X. I don't know why I said a D the last time. Briggs is with a Z, BRIGGZ. All links are in the description below if you are too lazy to go and spell on the social app. Yes, I said what I said. You cannot come and beat me. Also, share. Like, that is the biggest support that you can give to this community of fluid ones. You and I are fluid ones, you understand? When I post on social media, I don't post for myself, I post for you guys. When I come here and record, I don't just do it for myself, I do it for you guys, you understand? The level of research that goes into these things. So support by sharing, and listen to this as much as you deem helpful. But don't forget to share, or I'll come for you in your dreams. And bye bye, and I'll see you next week. In 2 weeks. Yes, bye bye.